All right, can you all see me out there? Still trying to get this thing down here on lives. Can you all see me? I know Rumble is not connected. Now it is. Should be. It says it is anyway. Can you all see me here? All right, we are live. We are live. Welcome everybody to the Rice Report here on YouTube and Rumble. I hope we have Rumble online today, just to be able to reach out to more platforms. Michelle, hi, how are you? Thank you all for being here tonight. Sorry it's so late. I'm really trying to get this set in place where I do these every day at 4 o'clock. Now that we have the technology in place and we have everything set up, we should be able to, get these things done by 4 p.m. every day. Today was a little different. Had to take my dog to the vet. She was not feeling good, and my mother-in-law just moved in today. So a lot of big stuff happening here at the house, so my apologies for being on so late, but I wanted to get this information out to you, so let's go ahead and get started. We have some really serious things happening around the world, so I try to do these things with a smile as much as I can. These are very difficult times to live in right now. There are some very difficult pills to swallow out there. One of those being the fact that our own government lies to us on a regular basis. And if you haven't figured that out by now, you're probably not on this live, but hopefully you'll see this replay a little bit later. So we recently had some real good proof of this. I mean, there's certainly proof all over the place, but one place that you could look for the lies we've been telling you about here on this program, whether it's on Telegram, Rumble, YouTube. I've been kicked off a couple things here and there for the past couple of years, but we seem to be anchored in here, very well throttled. Very well shadow banned. I still don't think you can find me in the search engine unless you're a subscriber on this channel, so I don't expect this channel to be around very long. So please try to find me on Rumble. Eventually we will have to move there. But the most recent lie that has come out from our government has come out and been called out here for the last 3 years about the jobs report. Yesterday was a very interesting scenario, or 2 days ago I should say. 816,000 jobs were made up out of thin air. The remaining jobs that over the past year, so from March to March, our government overstated, and this is a nice word to use when you're trying to cover up a lie. They overstated employment or jobs in this country by 816,000 jobs. That is the largest number in 15 years. And remember, 15 years ago was the great financial crisis, and they did the exact same thing. Markets didn't collapse until they finally said that we were in a recession. There is an unelected board of bureaucrats that determine whether or not we are in a recession. And it's obvious to all of us that we've been in one for the better part of 3 years, and what's coming next is a little bit worse. I don't know if it will be 1929 style depression. I don't see that being, I hope that's not the case, because barely anybody knows how to grow their own food or do anything manual like they did back then. So I don't think it'll be that bad. But we're certainly looking at a very bad economic outlook. 816,000 jobs just completely made up out of thin air. They use this as a tool not only for elections and approval from voters, but they use this as a way of manicuring the stock market, because about 91% of all trades in the stock market occur through algorithmic trading. And these algorithms draw their data. I say this all the time. These algorithms draw their data from trusted sources. They get weighted more if they are a trusted source. So most people who haven't awakened yet, they think that our government is a trusted source. So these algorithms see these great jobs reports, great GDPs, and that's why the market's booming. It's all algorithmic. It's very easy to rig if you own the levers of power. And we've watched that happen for the last 3 years, and we're really, really watching it in full steam right now. The Philadelphia Services Index, which is something that manages the amount of service, has basically said that full-time employment is as low as it was in 2020 when the entire world was shut down. The interesting thing about the jobs report, I forgot who put it out today. I would love to give you credit, but somebody did a screenshot of Fox. And Fox showed that between CBS, NBC, and ABC, which are the 3 largest channels on television, all owned by Democrat, communist, whatever you want to call them, they gave the jobs report, the restructuring, the 816,000 made-up jobs, they gave that 20 seconds of airtime only on ABC. So it's very important that we as Americans share the information that we find. I spend a tremendous amount of time every day digging through stats and charts and figures, and hopefully this is helping all of you make better decisions in your life. That's the entire point of this show and me spending all this time here, because I just love y'all, I love people, and I don't want to see anyone get hurt from obvious scams and fraud in the marketplace. So only ABC for 20 seconds said, oh yeah, by the way, There's like 816,000 less jobs than we thought there were. Moving on to the next topic. That's pretty much how it works. Propaganda or fake news is not just for them to lie to you. It's also for them to keep things from you. So we have to share the facts and figures. And even I love theories. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm going to get into some conspiracy theory episodes in the next couple of days. I think you're going to love them or you'll hate them. So some of you, I may see more of you or I may see less of you in the future. But the truth needs to be told about lots of different things. And unfortunately, our world is bombarded with information constantly that keeps us from being able to talk about, other important things. But I think it's important to note 816,000 fake jobs were put out in the market. That has rigged the stock market so much that since August 5th, that was the big day where everyone thought it would be a black swan. I called it a duck. It was a duck because I know what's happening. The S&P since August 5th, the big dip day, is up 9.5%. That's $4.3 trillion in assets that have been reaccumulated from that dip in just 13 trading days. As I've said time and time again, there's almost $7 trillion sitting in money market accounts. That's from normal people like you and I. That's banks, that's trading centers, that's options traders. There's a lot of cash in the market. So in order to fully crash the market, theoretically, no one really knows how the algorithms work for credit scores or for stock markets. Nobody really knows. I've actually met some of the guys who wrote parts of the equation, but no one is allowed to see the entire equation, there's probably some good to it, I suppose. I don't believe in credit scores. I think it's a communist construct. You certainly should have a payment history behind you to see if you're qualified for new lending, but using it for other purposes is really ridiculous. But we are watching this a massive amount of cash. There are plenty of people who know what's going on right now who are sitting in cash, waiting for crashes to be able to buy them, because when they put that money into the system, it will automatically drive the buy and sell ratio back up, increasing value and prices. You just watched that with your own eyes in the last 13 days. So please listen to what I'm telling you. It's going to be very difficult to crash the market without something catastrophic happening because there is so much cash sitting on the sidelines. So please pay attention to that because there's opportunities in volatility, very big opportunities in volatility that could help you out. Now, the conference board has an LEI, a leading economic indicator, is down 29 points, it's been down for the last 29 consecutive months. This is an indicator on how well the economy is doing. The economy is separate from the stock market. They are not the same thing, and the economy is tanking for 29 consecutive months. The U.S. Treasury just printed another $270 billion in the last 30 days. 30 days, $270 billion. That's almost $1 billion a day being printed. If you calculate that on an annual basis, you're looking at $3.24 trillion a year being printed. And I promise you folks, they haven't even started the money printer yet. There are so many economic indicators that are coming right now, not just in this country, but in countries all around the world that are giving us a very good indicator that money printing has not yet begun. I believe in my very essence that in the next 6 to 8 months, there's going to be another $4 to $5 trillion printed in this country and another 13 to 18 trillion printed around the world. This is truly the problem with fiat currency. Really take some time to understand the history of money. It's very important. Money started out as seashells. It moved into coins, stones, and then coins, and then barter was in the middle of that. And eventually what happens is when it's centralized, someone has control of it and they end up stealing it all and creating something fake, like what happened here in 1971 when we went off the gold standard. So again, 270 billion printed in the last 30 days. I look at very strange things. A few months ago, maybe a year ago, I gave a report about the decline in the purchases of packaging, of cardboard boxes that you put products in. That is on a steady decline, about 18% annually. These indicators are very strange. There's people who look at the price of a Big Mac for the economy. There's people who look at the sex industry, it's called the stripper index. If strippers are making less money, there's less money going around in the market. One of the things I always look at is online gambling. This past year, in 2023, online gambling houses, online bookies for sports betting made $11 billion. The average family in this country lost $1,100 per family. People are spending way more money on online gambling than they are in investments. And this is a symptom of a larger disease. Of course, there's the disease of gambling and sin and the things that we deal with in society. But it's a symptom of a larger disease, meaning that as fiat currency systems, as they print more money and your money is worth less, You have to gamble more to keep pace with inflation. You have to gamble more all the time. And when you're looking at a sports bet, there are people out there who are putting less money in their 401k and betting on the NFL, which is also rigged, by the way. They're putting money on these games. And the reason that they're doing this is that the gamble you have to take with online betting, sports betting, is 100% return usually, right? So if you bet $100 on a game and you win $100. If you lose $100. It's 100% either way. So they're looking for these big returns. This is why you see so many tweets out there about the crypto industry, these crypto coins that have CEOs that are centralized no matter what they say. They have a big industry right now. In fact, crypto companies, corporations, are one of the highest political contributors to PACs this year. Some of the highest contributors to political campaigns through PACs are the crypto industry. These are symptoms of a larger disease, a failing economy. Other symptoms you can notice in your own real life are going to be spam phone calls, online identity theft. Scamming in general is a real big business when economies collapse. And I would pay attention to that because we also just found out that pretty much every living and dead person in the history of the United States, their information is now available on the dark web. And pay attention to people online that tell you that these things are fake. Because my LifeLock went off 3 times in the last 2 days. So I know that my personal information is on the dark web, which is actually just a decentralized web. They call it dark so you don't use it because they can't control it. However, most of our information, if you have LifeLock, you're probably getting warnings as well. All of our information is now out there. So change your passwords, be safe. If you have Bitcoin or crypto, get it into cold storage, really protect it. Really make sure you protect your online savings, your credit card numbers, your social security numbers already out there, as is your address. So that's a very real thing that happened, and it really angers me when I hear people say that it is fake, which some things are fake, very fake. However, that is not one. Now, global debt is an issue we don't talk about here. I talk mostly about the U.S. debt and how bad this country is, but global debt statistics came out this week as well. Currently, all the nations from around the world, which all use fiat currencies with central banks, matter of fact, throughout all of history, if you didn't want a central bank in your nation, the United States was drawn into a war to take you out. And I'm going to go through World War II tomorrow, and I think that you'll love this version of a few different blended stories about history. I'll give you links to check out, but I'm going to summarize some really long documentaries and some really good research. But global debt is something we don't talk about. And almost every nation in the world, there might be 4 or 5 that don't have a central bank that controls their monetary policy and monetary supply. But globally, we are now $315 trillion in debt. Every nation, if you combine every nation throughout the world, they're $315 trillion in debt. That means that we now have a 33% debt to GDP ratio globally. 333% debt to GDP ratio. That means, say you made $100,000 a year. That would mean you would owe $333,000, though you only make $100,000. This is not a scenario that nations will get out of. This is really something that is going to have to be dealt with at a much larger scale. In real estate, which has commonly been thought of as a safe haven, it's not so safe anymore based on statistics. I've been talking about this for about 1.5 years. I've been anticipating where we are in history for about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years now. Housing starts, which is a great indicator, down 6.8%. That's the lowest number since 2020. You'll come to find out most of these statistics are regenerated numbers from either the financial crisis of 2008, 2009, or from the year 2020, which we can call it a scamdemic, pandemic, plandemic, whatever you want to call it. It was a black swan event that shut down every economy in the world for a period of time. That has never happened in human history. So housing starts are at the lowest number since 2020. They are down 16% year over year since 2020. These are really important numbers. Single-family homes are down 14.1% month over month, but multifamily, as projected, is up 14.6%. This is because a lot of multifamily projects were funded in 2022 and 2023, so that funding is now being put in place. So there are a lot of multifamily home starts that are happening right now, but they were financed a little over 2 years ago. So keep an eye on that. In the housing industry, there are 2 communist constructs that should wake up every person you have ever met. And if you haven't introduced them to this show, if you have, thank you so much. If you haven't, this is a great segment to send to them. The state of California has just earmarked $300 million to provide housing programs, ownership programs for illegal aliens in the state of California. This will include 0% down and zero payments for anywhere between 6 and 12 months. That is a better deal than you have ever seen in your life, and you're a legal citizen who pays taxes in this country. The state of Oregon is now Oregon. I'm from Chicago. We say Oregon. I know that will offend some Oregonians. However, Oregon is now offering a $30,000 free gift from the government for illegal aliens to buy your homes. So if you think that these conspiracy theories you've been hearing about replacement theory, all these other things, there's many things that go into a huge rush of illegals coming across your border, and housing's one of them, voting's another one, impending war is absolutely another one of them. And on Saturday, I'm going to do an episode, just a fun episode, game theorying back and forth. What's going to happen if Trump wins, or if Harris wins, or if Harris is even going to be there, because she is an anchor baby. But that didn't stop Obama, who's a Kenyan, from becoming president. So we'll see what happens with that in the future. Very important stuff to know on the real estate side. I talk a lot about the freight industry, and I don't hear many economists covering the freight industry out there, which is a shame, because in order to track sales, retail sales in a store, those products have to be put in a box, put on a train or a boat or a plane and a truck, ultimately driven to a retail shelf or sent to somebody through an online sale. And the freight industry, I've gone through now in the last 6 months, I've gone through 5 major bankruptcies from freight companies that have hundreds, if not thousands, of trucks that deliver the things you need for your home. The most recent one happened yesterday with Universal Capacity Solutions in Nashville. They didn't downsize, they didn't lay people off, they ceased all operations. These are really big, important things. Our supply chain is in big trouble. I know right now you might not say that, because you may go to the grocery store and they have bread and muffins and milk. However, when you start seeing freight companies shutting down at the speed that we're watching them, normally you see 3 or 4 of these per year. We're seeing 1 to 2 per month. There's a big acceleration that's shutting down the transportation industry that brings you the goods and services you need to live your life. So pay attention to that. There's never a bad time to stock up on a month or 2 months of food. And before prices go up again, which they're going to when they print money, because every time they print money, they say prices go up, but what actually happens is there's a blend of the two things. Prices do go up. The value of the dollar definitely goes down, but there's a huge coordinated effort that happens in this country, not on a normal level. 100 years ago, this wasn't the case, but now since we live in a completely monopolistic society where we have untethered monopolies throughout this country, Microsoft, Google, Monsanto, they're everywhere. We have the biggest justice we need to see in this country. Of course, we need to see political justice, criminal justice, but please don't forget about antitrust justice. These monopolies control a major piece of the business in this nation, and they work hand in hand with the central bank. So when they start printing, which they're doing right now at almost $1 billion a day, when they increase that to $4 or $5 billion a day, that's a signal for these mega corporations to raise prices and squeeze the middle and lower class. This has happened for the last 25 years without anyone stopping it. Excuse me. Cyber attacks, another thing that we've talked about quite a bit here. I've gone through at least a dozen cyber attacks live on some of these things on Telegram and on YouTube and Rumble with many of my videos. These are very serious issues. Number one, everyone's social security number was just released. So we know that that was a cyber hack. We also know that one of the largest chip suppliers to our Defense Department, and this is very important, the people who supply microchips and semiconductors to our Defense Department were just hacked, along with Halliburton, who happens to be the second largest oil service provider in the world. So these aren't mom and pop shops or a little ice cream store in the corner. These are major corporations that are being hacked. We've already seen half of Las Vegas casinos hacked. MGM was down for about 4 or 5 days, and everyone's information was stolen during that as well, which is why you should never have a casino card if you gamble, because they are tracking everything you do. However, this definitely correlates with some information we're getting from the World Economic Forum. If you don't know who the World Economic Forum is, just imagine an entire panel of people that are controlled by the devil who create, policy and legislation all throughout the world. That's essentially what it is, run by a guy named Klaus Schwab, who looks like a gay Bond villain, but somehow he runs the world. And this new Bond villain came out a couple days ago. I talked about this in a couple episodes. Came out and said that the world should be ready for shocking events. Now, you might say maybe he's just saying things. I've been watching the World Economic Forum in grand detail with a fine-tooth comb and a magnifying glass for the last 5 years, and they have yet to say or predict something that hasn't come true. And I'll explain to you how that happens. So Klaus Schwab came out and predicted 3 major events that are going to affect your life. Now, you could say maybe they'll affect your life, but statistically and historically, this has always happened because the same people who are, predicting something will happen are the ones in charge of making sure that their predictions come to life. They have predicted a major intentional cyber attack or a cyber pandemic throughout the world. And this is going to really dovetail with what I'm going to talk about in politics in just a moment. But this is pretty easy to understand. When you see nations like China, who are very close with Klaus Schwab, you see nations all around the world, including the United States, all have hacking divisions. So they actually employ people who hack. Their job is to hack on demand. Not hard to figure out that a prediction would come true from someone who pulls the purse strings and the actual levers of power in almost every nation in the world. So I expect a very large-scale cyber attack to occur within the next 12 months. They also say that there's going to be a new global extremist group that pops up. Wow, that's interesting. I will probably be called a new global extremist, as will you for watching this show. But at the same time, it's important to understand that this same organization who funnels money through nations like Israel, the United States, Russia, China, all the major nations, they actually create extremist groups. And if you haven't heard this before, you should. Places like Israel actually fund organizations like Hamas through what we call rat holes in the financial industry, like Qatar, who's a major rat hole. It's a great place to run money through. You can hide it from all kinds of people. Switzerland's always been good for this, although they've been cracked down a little bit. But it's also not hard to figure that these new radical extreme groups are created as a way of causing chaos in society so that the World Economic Forum can create order. And that order always comes with you getting less money, owning less properties, having less rights, and in the end, being miserable in life. So it's something to definitely pay attention to. The third thing that he mentioned is going to happen is a fast-track climate change event. Well, isn't that funny? How can a man predict what God may do? Well, if that man is pretending to be God on Earth, he would have to have tremendous amounts of patents and technology. And if you take the time, which most people don't, go to Google patent search and search exactly how many weather modification, geoengineering, climate change, earthquake, tornado, hurricane. Look how many patents there are for technologies that actually can control the weather. Now, there's a well-known system for conspiracy theorists out there, which, again, I'm part of the club. I just try to tone it down a little bit to bring in the rest of the audience. But there's a system called HAARP, H-A-A-R-P. That has been around since the late 1960s. It's been in use. We've been actually cloud seeding or geoengineering since the 1940s. In late 2010, John Brennan, former head of the CIA, came out in a public statement and said, "We control the weather." So when a place like the World Economic Forum tells you a cyber pandemic, which is going to be intentional, it's probably going to be their intention, probably going to happen. When there will be a new global extremist group that hits the world, it's probably someone they've been paying and training, and it would make a lot of sense to me that this new extremist group would be in the United States, would be completely made of foreigners who are getting, in Chicago anyway, they're getting $15,000 a month for living. And in places like Montana, Wyoming, where are the other ones I've heard of? South Dakota, some of these other really, really desolate rural places, there's all kinds of information I'm getting from people I know about massive groups of people who don't speak English that are doing firearms training. It would not surprise me at all if the new MAGA movement, that is the new global extremist group, is actually going to be a bunch of foreigners. But I'm almost certain that they will blame it. In the UK, they'll blame it on the conservatives. Everywhere around the world, they'll blame it on conservatives who have done nothing. We have done nothing but peaceful protests and using words and doing things like YouTube lives to help each other out. But be aware of that. And then a fast-track climate change event that's coming. That will more than likely be a man-made event, and it will more than likely be blamed on climate change because this is one of the oldest grifts in the world. Climate change has been around for thousands of years. The climate's changed. When people used to ask me, what are your thoughts about climate change? I said, well, that's what they do. That's like saying, what are your thoughts on lungs breathing? Well, that's what they do. They draw in and exhale oxygen. I'm sorry. Let me be accurate. They inhale oxygen, exhale CO2. However, when it comes to looking at things like climate change, you can go back historically to all the South American tribes, Indian tribes, Western Asian, Eastern Asian, Southern Asian tribes throughout the world, that when it wouldn't rain, they would want all of your firstborn children. They would want virgins to sacrifice. So again, give up the things you love, hand it to people in power, and they'll make sure that the weather is good. So really think about the $60 trillion grift that's happening right now, where literally more than half of our country believes this grift, that people who, if you give them $60 trillion over a 5-year period, all your money, all your sovereignty, all your rights, that they can actually control the weather, which is true. They actually can control the weather. For $60 trillion, they'll turn off the weather modification. We'll go back to God's weather and we'll deal with it as it happens. But be prepared for those 3 things to happen. I do believe every word they say. I believe that when they have evil intentions, they execute on them. That's why they have so much power. There is a good versus evil battle that occurs every moment of every day. God versus the devil, whether you believe in it or not. It's very real. And these are the guys who are spearheading. Well, Klaus Schwab is probably 15, 16 notches down from the upper echelon of darkness and evil, but he's certainly the most well-known in the world. So let's get into U.S. politics, because I think that's a very big topic that people are interested in. I am. I'm going to give a prediction today. I don't do that very often. It's probably going to be wrong. My track record's pretty good at predicting these things, and you may not like what I have to say, but I'm going to say it anyway because everyone keeps asking me what I think is going to happen. So the big news in politics right now is with Robert Kennedy, with Bobby Kennedy, RFK. His campaign has actually been really good. Whether you like RFK or not, his campaign has been very good. And there have been many people saying this entire time that he's going to join forces with Trump. Now, I have witnesses to this because when I spoke at Freedom Fest in Memphis last year, I actually ran into the campaign heads of RFK. It's a funny story, actually. So I was at a hotel restaurant with a bunch of friends. I went to go buy a few drinks and a sandwich. I went up to the counter and I tried to pay in cash like I always try to do. And they said, we don't accept cash here. And I said, wow, you're full on commie. And the person behind me started laughing. That person behind me happened to have been one of the higher ups in the RFK campaign. So we sat down and talked for a little while. He knew I was a speaker there. And very nice guy. Very nice guy. I forgot his name, but man, if you watch this, which you probably can't see it on a search engine anyway, you were a very nice gentleman and you were very kind to my fairly rude response. He asked me in front of my friends at one point, he's like, well, what do you think about RFK? And I said, I like his policies. I love where he's at on some of his stances, especially vaccines. I love that he's pro-Bitcoin. I love that kind of stuff. However, I think that he would make an excellent vice president one day. And he asked me, who would he make a good vice president for? And I said, well, a guy named Donald Trump, because that's who everybody at this table is voting for, and probably 80% of the country will by the time the election starts. This was well over a year ago. And now that it's kind of coming to fruition, he's not going to be VP. That is J.D. Vance. I know every day online we hear that they're going to swap him out for someone else. I can't see that happening. I'll be happy to be wrong and admit when I'm wrong. But RFK would make a great person to have in Trump's campaign, whether you like him or not. I of course, don't like a lot of his background. I don't like that he's pro-abortion. I hate that. I don't like the fact that he is a climate change guy or a Democrat for his entire life. But his uncle is the only Democrat in my life that I ever would have voted for. And he has a big, big axe to grind with the powers that be because they killed his uncle and his father. So now there's a lot of talk about RFK. I think it's going to happen tomorrow. They're both going to be in Arizona, in Phoenix, and Trump is going to be giving a speech. I'm pretty certain at this point in time that RFK is going to drop out and endorse Trump, and I really hope that he brings him on, which I think is absolutely going to happen from my perspective. And I think this is a really big moment, and it's something that you should pay attention to. I was at the Bitcoin conference in 2024, and I know that there's probably 15 shills watching this right now who are going to attack me for vying for Bitcoin, which is the only option in the world that's decentralized. Everything else is not. There are certainly interesting other technology projects out there, but I think that the good ones that survive will have a very small niche in very small areas. Bitcoin doesn't need a government, a president, nothing like that. They need nothing like that. What they do need is they need advocates in powerful places. And RFK's speech on Bitcoin, he talked about accumulating 4 million Bitcoin, creating a whole treasury behind it. And more importantly, Trump echoed that. So Trump said that he was going to, first of all, this is interesting. Most people come here for financial topics. You have the most scarce asset in the world, period. There's never been a more scarce asset than Bitcoin that's ever existed. It's the hardest money in the history of the world. And you have two presidential candidates saying they're going to accumulate anywhere between 1 million and 4 million Bitcoin as a U.S. stockpile for a treasury asset. This is what's called power projection. There is a book called Soft War written by a guy in Space Force named Jason Lowery, which is brilliant. It's his master's degree thesis on how Bitcoin can be used for national defense, which I believe in 100%. And I will get into Bitcoin next week. I know I'll be attacked by people online, and I really don't care. You guys aren't going to stop me in any way, shape, or form, but I will certainly stop you if you keep pushing. However, it is important to note that having these advocates in there for decentralized finance in any way, shape, or form is important to us because I just explained centralized finance creates a lot of bad problems, especially for the lower and middle class. Now, having this chip on your shoulder for the CIA, I hear a lot of people saying RFK would be a great head of the CIA. I disagree. I think that he would be tremendous in the areas of health, of Surgeon General. But as a CIA director, there's just too much in his background. I think we need someone with a more clean, open, and transparent background in that area. And more importantly, I would hope that both of these two men would fulfill the promise made by JFK to dismantle the CIA and into 1,000 pieces and disperse them in the wind. That is absolutely the most important thing that could happen. Our intelligence agencies don't just run this country. They run your life and they run the world. It's far too powerful of an organization. It needs to be dismantled. And those two guys together, I think, would bring a lot of power. Now, a little known candidate in the presidential race is Dr. Jill Stein, who I didn't know much about until a couple days ago. RFK has been denied security for his speeches. He's been denied Secret Service. He's been denied the ability to defend himself in court to keep himself on state ballots. That is about as corrupt and about as much election interference as humanly possible. But Dr. Jill Stein, who I believe is running under the Green Party ticket, she has been sued by the Democrats to be removed from state ballots all throughout the country. So if you're a Democrat watching this, God bless you. I love you. Thank you for watching this. I certainly try to be as little offensive as possible because I know it's not your fault. I know that you have been lied to and you have bought into lies for a very long time. And throughout history, people have lied this much and accumulated this large of a following. It's always ended up in genocide. This happened in Soviet Russia, happened all over the place. So thank you for coming with an open mind. But when you have one political party that's denying security to an independent candidate who's suing a Green Party candidate off of its ballot in various states, you have a corrupt political system. And now we are starting to see a lot of, in our daily prayer today on Telegram, I read a piece from Paul, who is formerly known as Saul of Tarsus. So the man who spent his life killing and slaughtering Christians was actually saved by Christ and ended up writing most of the New Testament. I believe that spirit of transformation where people are going from serving the darkness to serving the light is happening everywhere. And it may be happening in the strangest places, like at least through the mouth of Chris Cuomo, who is one of the most notorious propagandists in the history of the world from CNN. Since he's gone independent, it was very interesting to watch him at the DNC the other day, telling people, showing a panning view of all the skyboxes at the United Center, that each one of those skybox costs $500,000, and that you little peanut people like you and I, we really don't matter. Now, I disagree with about 98.9% of what Chris Cuomo has ever said, but that is a very important thing to cover. I said this a couple episodes ago. You want to solve the political corruption issue? You find candidates, you have multiple parties, the government issues a stipend for their campaigns, and that's all they get. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of getting these texts every day where Trump needs $10 and JD Vance needs $25 donations. These are grifts. These are absolute grifts. By the way, there's no way Kamala Harris, Camila, whatever her name is, whatever she goes by, whether she's Indian or black, whatever it is today, there's no way she's raised $500 million in a month. That is a money laundering organization called Act Blue, who steals money from people in micro donations. And they are really on the rampage right now, and they're being exposed by places like James O'Keefe's organization and others. On the good news, of politics, Gold Bar Bob Menendez, is now convicted of 16 felonies. This is a man who has sold United States secrets to foreign countries for his entire career as a senator. He made a fortune, and the thing he's known for is having cash and gold bars in his house. That was actually just reality 50 years ago. But he has been taking money from foreign nations, getting cars, all kinds of things, to sell out U.S. secrets, and now he is facing 200 years in prison. I'm happy with that. I'm happy that there's some justice there. But when you start selling U.S. secrets to foreign nations for your own personal gain, that's actually called treason. And the penalty for treason is very well known, and that is not the penalty for treason. Moreover, his conviction allowed him to work and collect a paycheck from taxpayers for almost 60 days before he was fired. Now, if you were accused of selling out corporate secrets by a higher up at work, you would be fired on the spot, and you would never, ever be paid for that. Ever. You would never get a penny for that. So don't take any of this stuff that's happening as like a call to action, but please take it as a call to reality. When you're selling out U.S. secrets or any nation in the world, if you are part of the government, you are a traitor to this nation. You are a traitor. There's no other way around that. So let's move on to some health issues. We got monkeypox on the rise all over the place. I keep hearing monkeypox everywhere. Now, monkeypox is a very little known thing. It's generally a sexually transmitted disease, oftentimes, almost always through the gay community. However, monkeypox, there is a lot of good research. There's a lot of horrible researchers out there, and that's fine because they're just normal people doing their job. But there's some excellent, or not their job, doing a service to help us all. So all research is good research. And I try to see all of it. But there are some excellent researchers out there right now. Ian Carroll's one of them on Twitter. You should check him out. He's fantastic. But they're starting to show that the ingredients that would give you monkeypox were in the vaccine. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on this network or website, but I will, because you're going to kick me off anyway eventually. But now monkeypox is actually popping up. It's not just a scare. There are people getting monkeypox. However, is it really monkeypox? Or is it the shingles? Because they both look identical. And shingles is something you get from vaccines when you're a child to keep you away from chicken pox. So is it chicken pox? Is it monkeypox? Is it shingles? I don't know. But I do know that there's a very high probability that vaccine side effects, which are now 3.5 to 4 years old, will be showing in human bodies. Whether that's from a lowered immune system or whether that's from, after effects of shingles or monkeypox, whatever they want to call it. I do know that we were right at that ticking time bomb era, which every good researcher in the world predicted. After the vaccines, you have 3 to 5 years before you start seeing real bad side effects. And we've already lost 11.5 million people from vaccine side effects throughout the world. I don't mean to make light of that situation. Many of us, including me, have vaccinated family members who think that we are crazy. And that's okay. That's okay. We love them anyway. And we pray for them every single day that they do not experience anything bad. They didn't do this because they knew it was the right thing. They did this because they were pressured into it by a corrupt government who killed their own people, which is also treasonous. Now in Florida, this is an interesting thing. I think about 2 months, my family thinks I'm crazy a lot of the time, and generally 30 to 90 days later, they start believing what I'm saying. About maybe 3 or 4 months ago, somebody brought up the topic of fluoride. No, I did. We were talking about how and don't take this the wrong way. The phrase that was used in my house was, man, the youth are so stupid today. Is that their fault? No, actually. We have a terrible school system. We have horrible parenting, and we have nothing more than a hedonistic society that can't stop looking at their cell phone. So I don't expect kids to be well educated until the nation changes. However, I said, well, that's probably due to a lot of fluoride. And my family laughed at me, and I said, no. Fluoride has been proven for at least 15 years. There was a white paper that came out about 9 months ago that proves that too much fluoride intake does lower IQ. There is an absolute correlation between the drop in IQ. The U.S. has seen an 8-point drop in overall average IQ in the past 5 years alone. We have also seen massive traces of fluoride in our water. And now the Florida Department of DHH in Florida came out and said that, yes, fluoride in young children has lowered their IQ by 2 to 5 points. You're going to see a lot more of these theories becoming true as more researchers invest more money into proving that they are. On a side note, I'm in Texas. 2 big things happened here in Texas. No competes were actually canceled out. That's a good thing. No competes are only good for employers. They're terrible for employees. I have 2 friends right now who haven't been able to work because they can't work at a competitor, and they've only worked in that industry for their entire life, so they don't have any experience anywhere else. And they approved a $2 billion tollway improvement on the 280 that goes through Harris County by Houston, which might be the most corrupt county in the country, definitely the most corrupt county in Texas. They just approved $2 billion for an extension to a toll road, which is going to increase tolls throughout the entire state. The idea of a toll road is stupid to begin with. They really only exist in America. It's another way of pinching the pennies of the middle and lower class. When I used to commute down into Addison from where I live right now, I was spending between $150 and $200 per month just to go to and from work. And now that's going to increase. So those who are making $50,000, $60,000 a year, this is a huge burden. So supply chain choke, inflation, prices rising, high interest rates, no real estate activity, no lending, and now your toll roads are going up in price. These are really bad things. Enough about America. Let's get into the rest of the world. We'll get back into America at the end, because I love this country. I love all of you. Thank you for being here. I don't even know how many people are on here right now. I don't know if anyone is on here right now, but thank you for all those who watch the recordings or come on here live. I'm going to check our chat in just a minute. The Ukraine. This has been, if you look at America and where we are, I said this probably 10 or 12 years ago. America's become gangland. In every situation that happens, you have to pick a side. You must pick a side. That's not human nature. That's social engineering. And for the first 3 years of the Biden administration, it was always, do you support Ukraine or Russia? I don't have to support either one of them. I support America, and I support America keeping our nose out of everybody else's business. I'm a nationalist. That's how I feel. And there's nothing you can do to change it, because it's the best way, I believe, to run a country is to love your country and not love other countries until your country is solvent and strong enough to help them. We are not solvent. We are not strong. I'm going to get into that in a minute. And we certainly shouldn't be helping foreign countries. We have our own problems here, many of our own problems here that need to be solved first. However, Ukraine, who 3 weeks ago, around August 5th, Zelensky went live and said, I am ready to talk about peace with Putin. Putin, by the way, had a great conversation with a native Ukrainian at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, which was 30 minutes of her hating me. And at the end, she gave me a hug. I sent her some videos to prove my point, and I think her eyes were open. By the way, she worked for a very powerful Connecticut senator when she was in college. So she was completely democratically brainwashed, thinking that Putin couldn't wait to take Ukraine and kill everyone there. Putin has offered peace 3 times to Ukraine. Zelensky came out 3 weeks ago and said he was ready to talk about peace. Well, that didn't suit Klaus Schwab and the other World Economic Forum people and the Rothschild family and the Soros family. They do not want that war to end. It is their meal ticket. So in the last couple of days, there have been drone strikes in Moscow, from Ukraine to Moscow, using U.S. weapons. That's a very important thing to keep a hold of. 11 drones were shot down by the Russians, and then a Russian military facility caught on fire from a missile strike. This is within Russia. So a country that's defending its territory often will attack a border to keep people off the border, but they won't go deep into a nation like going into Moscow. That's an offensive move. That is creating war, not defending your land. Now, along with this, the Krasnodar oil facility is now completely on fire. This is the 4th largest oil facility in Russia. So their natural resources, supply chains, and infrastructure is being attacked by Ukraine, which every corrupt Democrat in the world will tell you is a good thing. Yeah, we need to go to war. I thought they were the guys for peace. I thought the left was about peace, love, and the hippie stuff. Now they're warmongers, and they want more war because they don't like Putin, who is now offering safe haven to U.S. citizens who are tired of dealing with left-wing extremists throughout the Western Hemisphere. This is a very interesting time to be alive. When you look at facts, Russia actually might be a better place to live for many of us. I'm never going there. But it's certainly an option that people have, and it's now welcome. This began in El Salvador. They took a very violent nation, fixed their money, arrested people, put them in jail, and now many people are moving there to these beautiful beaches for a very low cost. But the Krasnodar oil facility being on fire, along with another military facility being on fire and drone strikes occurring on Moscow, does not sound like someone who wants peace. Keep that in mind as Israel and Iran begin to gear up. These things are definitely happening. And that goes directly. If you want to know what's happening in Ukraine, here's the best way I can explain Ukraine. 3 years ago, they imprisoned all of their political opponents. So the right wing, the conservatives in Ukraine, were silenced and then imprisoned. That sounds like Bolshevik Russia. I know people will say Nazi Germany, but Bolshevik Russia. And then they started eliminating any dissenter. Now, what they've done with the blessing of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, which makes absolutely no sense, the Ukrainian parliament just banned Christianity. If you still think that this is about political opponents and financial markets and Trump versus Biden or Harris or any of that, you are missing the boat. This is about good and evil. This is about God and the devil. No one is under attack more than Christians throughout this world, especially white male Christians like myself. We're under attack for everything that we do. And it's okay. We're strong. We'll get through it. We have God on our side. But it's important that you notice what's happening around the world. You know, some interesting things throughout history with the persecution of Christianity, which gets no play in any history book or documentary. What does get play is the other people who lost their life. For instance, World War II, we were told that 6 million Jews died. There's a huge debate on whether that's even possible or not. However, no one talks about the fact that our partner in the war, the Bolsheviks from Russia, who are Zionists, that they slaughtered 35 million Christians. Have you heard that before? Because you don't hear about the massive Christian slaughters. And as I've talked about with cancel culture, the purpose of any psychological operation is you go from political correctness to cancel culture to genocide. And it's pretty easy to see who they're trying to pin into that area of genocide at this point in time. So the Ukrainian parliament voted to basically end Christianity with the approval of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church in Ukraine. Can't make this stuff up. The UK, just as bad. They have they're releasing, they haven't done it yet, but they are releasing 5,000 criminals in prison. These are rapists, murderers, thieves, fraudsters. They are releasing them from prison to make room for people who post mean stuff online or dissenting information about a government. Now, many people will say this will never happen in America. They would never do that. It would never happen in England either. Remember that? That's an area of free speech. One of the things, to kind of prove my point, one of the statements you can make to get yourself fined, arrested, or thrown in prison online is a phrase that they put in writing. Here's the phrase. It's okay to be white. It's okay to be white. You can get thrown in prison for saying that in the UK. And they are making room for you in the UK. Now, people will say this won't happen in America, couldn't happen in America. We're a bastion of free speech. Read the laws. If we go to war, which if there is a World War III that starts, whether it's Israel and Iran, Ukraine and Russia, or in one of the other pending 15 other wars that exist throughout the world, if we decide to formally go to war, which we may not be able to be honest with you, because our Strategic Petroleum Reserve only has 14 days left of reserves. That means that our military could fight a war for exactly 14 days, plus the reserves the military has currently. So call it maybe 6 to 8 months. And you can't actually declare war unless you get approval from Congress, which shouldn't be a problem with the corruption there. But in order to do that, you have to have the finances and the resources to do so, and we simply don't. We've been selling off our oil, despite the fact that on the news they tell you we're producing more oil now than we ever did in our history. That reminds me a lot of the jobs report and the GDP. If you take that verbatim, you are going to be in a bad spot. If you can store gasoline, I'd store gasoline because I think we'll see shortages if we go to war immediately. However, if we were to go to war in this country, our laws about dissenters are very clear. If I were an evil, corrupt person trying to rig an election, and everything I was doing to rig an election was failing, I would start a war. And I would start a war because it gives me a lot of protection. Number one, elections can be canceled during a war. And during that canceled election period, we also have laws called dissenter laws. So if we were to declare war and you were to go online and say, it's okay to be white, I don't know if that'll be the problem here in this country. Hopefully not. But if you were to go online and say, I disagree with this war, I think Kamala Harris is evil, or Joe Biden, or whatever, you could be considered a dissenter and thrown in jail for up to 10 years. That is a wartime law in the United States that we all need to be very aware of. And if we do get into that situation, I will not shut my mouth, and I certainly will not let them take me to prison either. This is not how a free nation works. Now, to let you know how close we are to this possibility, and I say possibility, I know there's plenty of people out there who say this is going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But what I do know is I track everything that's happening right now, whether it's individuals online or global affairs. And I see a lot of things. I understand a lot of things at this point in time. And the Air Force just came out with a warning for the families on military.com saying to prepare for catastrophic events with a Pacific conflict. So our military knows what's going on. Intelligence networks and intelligence cables are very thorough and very robust. And our intelligence agency knows what's happening months before it actually happens. When the Air Force is now, at least on military.com, I'm not in the Air Force, I'm just telling you what I read online. They are now saying to prepare for catastrophic events in the Pacific. That conflict in the Pacific would be China taking back Taiwan. There is no other pending conflict out there. So if I were an evil overlord trying to run and control a nation and conquer them through communism, I would certainly start a lot of wars, spend a lot of your money, make you very poor, lose the wars, kill the soldiers, reduce the population, take away an entire constitution, and I would do it by setting fires throughout the world that we would pay to put out, which ultimately would cost us our rights, freedom, and money. And this is now happening. So we have that. We also have our Department of Defense came out. I wish I was making this up, everybody, but our Department of Defense came out with a phrase I've never heard before, saying they wanted to queer our nuclear weapons. I mean, have nuclear weapons now gone woke? Like queering our nuclear weapons? What they're talking about is a word I've been using for a long time that I'm certain that I was the first person online talking about the word deterrence being important. A deterrence program for a country is the nuclear capability you have to deter everybody else in the world from trying to take a shot at you. Now, I talk to a lot of people, and I can tell you that our deterrence division in the U.S. military right now is run by very infantile young people. They are given specific orders. They have a very specific duty to do if we are to be in a deterrent situation. I'm not an expert on the area, so I won't get too deep into it, but I can tell you wokeism has infiltrated the military. Every military guy watching this knows how much I respect them and how much they respect me. I have a lot of friends that are military and special forces and all these other things. But our military right now is not as strong as it was 4 years ago. I won't say our military is weak because we will still crush anybody. It'll just take us some time. We also have reports coming out from multiple people within the government that we are preparing for a three-front war with Iran, China, and Russia. Now, if we went head-to-head with Iran, we'd destroy them. If we went head-to-head with Russia, it would end up being nuclear and no one would win. And if we went head-to-head with China, we would probably beat them as well. But we go head-to-head with all three of them, there's not a nation in the world, in the history of the world, that could beat superpowers that have combined forces to destroy us. And while all this is happening, they're talking about queering our nuclear weapons. You literally can't make this up. So, something else you can't make up right now, a guy named Ronald Lee Servad. I don't know where he's from. I think he's from the Midwest somewhere. His picture's online. He's 66 years old. He's a wanted sex offender. He was actually convicted for not registering as a sex offender. He is now being sought after by the FBI, which means he'll never be found, for an assassination attempt on Trump. Another one. I want to ask you all a question. You ever wonder why so many sex offenders and pedophiles hate Trump? Yeah. The question answers itself, because Trump just came out with his new border plan today down on the border in Arizona. There's 4 major points to his new border plan, and all 4 of them are fantastic. And there are so many people in my life from the West Coast that when I started talking about the fact that building a wall is a great idea, they just ripped into me 4 years ago. Now, all of them have said, I understand what you're saying. It stops an invasion, because we're living through to be honest with you, a very low-key invasion at this point in time. It could be way worse than it is right now, and it probably will get that way in the next few months. But if Trump wins the election, if he wins, I believe he'll have all the votes, but he also had all the votes in 2020. After the election, if Trump is president again, he's given a 4-point plan for the border. You will get a 10-year sentence if you are found to be a human smuggler. 10 years. No questions, no appeal. If you are found guilty of human smuggling at the border, you will get a 10-year prison sentence. Now, that's a good thing and a bad thing. In my opinion, you send them back to where they're from. You cut deals with the other nations and say, this guy came into our country smuggling humans. We have a 10-year penalty for that. I don't want my taxpayers paying for this guy's food and board for the next 10 years. You take him back. You put him in prison for 10 years. And if you don't, we're going to have a real problem. That's the muscle this country actually has, and it's going to be very exciting if Trump gets back into office because that's kind of how he operates. The other one, if you're trafficking children across the border, you are going to get life in prison. And again, we shouldn't have to pay for them to be in our prisons. So you're looking at a very grand scale global takeover, but you're also looking at a grand scale global alliance that's fighting against this communist takeover of the world. And you got to pray and you got to hope for them. You got to support them and do everything that's right in your life. But a life sentence for child trafficking across the border, a death sentence for sex trafficking, and a death sentence for drug muling across the border. You want to end crime? Be tough on crime. When you're lenient on crime, crime multiplies like gremlins in water. I mean, they just multiply. So we have to get tough on crime. El Salvador has really paved the way with that model and that theory they have. And if you aren't following Bukele on Twitter, you certainly should, because he's putting out videos kind of all the time going, our violent offenders will never get out of prison. Our gang members will never get out of prison. However, some of our non-violent gang members can be rehabilitated, and they're now working in factories, getting their lives back together to create a good society there once again. And I think Trump's 4-point border plan is dead on. You traffic humans, you get 10 years. You traffic children, you get life. You smuggle drugs, you die. You traffic children or anyone for sex purposes, you die. That is how you shut down a border and how you shut down crime. Now, with all this happening, and thank you for being with me here tonight. I like doing this live more than I do recording. It's more fun because I can see some of your comments, and I'm going to get to them in just a moment. So if you have questions or things you'd like me to answer, just go ahead and put it in the comments. It pops up on my screen here. There's a lot of them on there right now. I don't know if I can go through all of them, but thank you all for commenting. So if you have anything that I missed, anything you want to talk about, anything you want detail on, I've got another 10 minutes maybe here before I have to shut down and put the kids to bed. But it's important to note that during these times, bad times like this, which are confusing, dark, overburdened with problems, from financial problems to problems in school systems, problems in your home, these are the times where people come to faith. It's historically accurate. I have never seen more people over the age of 40 years old get baptized at my church in my entire life. I didn't even know this many people would get baptized over the age of 40. We're seeing a lot of good pastors talking the truth. You know, there's definitely a biblical conflict, which I don't think is a biblical conflict at all, about what Israel is, who Israel is, and should you be supporting Israel. If you actually read the Bible that wasn't written by Cyrus Schofield, the obvious answer is very clear. We'll go through that next week. And, you know, when we live in these times like this, the division that's created by the darkness, the forces that are trying to take over this country, it is conquered through faith, through family, and through love. And times like this, you're starting to see people realize that the world is not what you thought it was, and they're finding a higher power, which is also giving them a better family, a better future, and a better community around them. So, you know, keep your faith through these times. Love your family. There's no better power you have in this world, especially the spiritual world, than the love for your children, the love for your wife, the love for your husband, the love for your parents. Love your family like you've never loved them before, and watch your life change. Spend 10 minutes a day praying to God. Even if you don't believe in him, see what happens. He's very real, and he loves you, and he's going to be with you every moment of the day if you take the time to talk to him. He'll be there either way, but you'll notice him a lot more when you talk to him. So that's all I have for you here this evening. I'm going to open it up on the chat tonight. I see a lot of stuff on here. People are saying that Harris accepted the nomination. I actually debated whether I should do this live or not because I wanted to watch her speech, because the entire DNC has kind of been like like an SNL episode or an episode of In Living Color. It just seems like really bad skit comedy. I actually think American politics right now is the new bread and circus. You have the NFL starting. That's bread and circus. Pay attention to the things that are important in your life. Harris accepting the nomination. I'll be interested to see some of the memes that come out tomorrow. It'll be very funny. Dale, thank you very much. Drew Barrymore endorsed Kamala Harris today. That's a huge endorsement. She is... Wow. It's amazing how many people follow celebrity in Hollywood all the way to their grave. I mean, they certainly will. So a lot of souls to save, a lot of things to do in this world. And it looks like we're going to wrap it up here tonight. When are you doing the Bitcoin live? I thought this was tonight. No, I'm just trying to catch up on the news because I took 2 weeks off to balance my soul out. I started a new company, so I wanted to spend some time on that, which I need to do more of, and really get my stuff together. For this program. It took us 3 days to rework the studio and get the software running right to be able to live stream and broadcast. That was very important to me. Now we're back on, so I'll definitely do that. Tomorrow I plan on doing some World War II stuff along with the news, just giving you a few ideas to look at. Expand your mind. History is mostly a lie. It's told by the winner. And if you understand who the winner is, which I'm going to clearly describe who has won most of the wars, you will be able to use your powers of discernment, research, and hard work to be able to find out what the truth in the world is. I'm not a truther in the way that I want to tell you the truth. I want to stimulate your mind to find the truth, because when you find it on your own with the guidance of someone else, it really sticks. But yeah, I'll do the Bitcoin thing either this weekend or Monday. We'll get that done. Bitcoin, crypto, any technology is best done with question and answer. So if you have questions, just start writing them down. It's the best way to do is answer the questions. I don't even care if you get into the ghost stories and conspiracy theories. I've worked through all those in my mind, not saying I'm right. But it's important that we have the ability to have open forum and question and challenge one another. I think it's a very important thing. And if you believe in something else and you think I'm completely out of my mind, I'm more than happy to have you challenge that and open up the conversation, a calm conversation. I'm more than happy to have it with anyone who thinks differently than me, because I'm not always right and I like to learn new things. So, please write down your questions. We'll either do that this weekend or we'll do it on Monday, probably Monday. Most people want to take a weekend off. Tomorrow, we're going to do the same thing, a rundown of tomorrow's chaos. Hopefully we'll have some good news about RFK and Trump. If RFK goes with Trump and endorses him, I think right now they're projecting RFK to get about 9%. I think the last time I saw the breakdown, that's about 70% Democrat votes, 30%. So talk about adding another 2.7% of the overall vote to Trump. That's a big thing. And I'd love to see his ideas for what he's going to do with him in the administration, because he'd be fantastic on vaccines. Other than that, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to take one look to see if we have any questions. You're welcome, everybody. Thank you for saying thank you. You're very welcome. I'm glad that I can do this and take the time to do it. I'm going to do it anyway. I want to know what's happening in the world for my own purposes. Is this a dummy account? There's an Eric Rice saying, awesome show. Thank you, Eric. Am I already being cloned on YouTube? Is this happening all over again? Well, I did actually work with a guy named Eric Rice in college, spelled the same way too. So if you are not a clone or a scammer trying to use my name and your name is actually Eric Rice, that's awesome. And you're very welcome. Thank you. I think that's all we have for this evening. So let's go ahead and wrap it up, and just God bless you all. God bless this country. Keep your heads, keep cool. There's a lot of crazy stuff. They want you to lose your mind. They want you. That's really the purpose. This is a battle for your mind, ultimately a battle for your soul. Your spirit is God's. Give it to him. And until next time, God bless you all, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a great night, everyone.